Hey guys, SuperHorrorBro Mike here, and in today's video we are going to take a look at horror games I'm excited to cover over the next few months before we close the curtain on the year 2022. Recently we've experienced a bit of a dry spell on the horror games scene, with very few notable releases, which has led me to slow down a little on my uploads and coverage. This is soon to change however, as the fall and winter months are looked to be jam-packed with horror titles from developers both big and small. In today's video I'm going to walk you through a selection of upcoming horror games that I'll be covering on the channel in the months ahead. So sit back, relax, and let's look to the horizon as we check out some exciting games coming soon. The most imminent release on today's rundown is Scorn from developer Ebb Software. Originally announced via a Kickstarter campaign many years ago, Scorn has since grown in both ambition and budget, and is now finally releasing on October 14th, 2022. Story details have been kept vague, and most of the game's narrative is shrouded in mystery. What we do know is that Scorn, at least on the surface, appears to take place on an alien planet, with structures made out of flesh and bone. Enemies are grotesque and bizarre in design, and the weapons we combat them with are just as gnarly in their inception. With that said, Scorn is not intended to be an action game, and combat is used sparingly as a last resort, when our human protagonist finds themselves backed into a corner. Instead, Scorn focuses on puzzle solving and atmospheric exploration to tell its tale of alien dystopia. Resident Evil Village was one of 2021's standout horror games. We took on the role of Ethan Winters as we experienced his final days exploring a derelict village full of werewolves and other hideous monstrosities in search of his stolen daughter Rose. In the long-awaited DLC Shadows of Rose, we step into the shoes of Rose Winters herself, now a 16-year-old girl struggling to control the terrifying superpowers she inherited from her late father. Rose is transported to a mysterious realm to confront the memories of her past in a twisted world of nightmares. While Village was an action-focused experience told from a first-person perspective, Shadows of Rose moves back to the classic third-person perspective used in the recent Resident Evil remake series. Traditional gun combat is used as a last resort, as ammo is scarce, though Rose is able to use her new superpowers to tackle enemies both old and new. This DLC will act as the final chapter in the Winters saga, closing the book on these characters and clearing the way for new stories to be told in Capcom's acclaimed horror universe. Evil Nun: The Broken Mask is a reimagining of the mobile classic Evil Nun, redesigned with new puzzles, cinematics, and much more ambitious visuals to create a brand new experience for fans and newcomers alike. We take on the role of a child who attends a religious summer camp, whereby they are abducted by the titular nun and then awaken in an abandoned school rigged with traps which must be avoided and overcome as a game of deadly hide and seek with the nun unfolds. As someone who has yet to check out Evil Nun due to my general dislike for mobile games, I'm excited to finally explore Keplerian's horrifying world and uncover the mysteries behind its cast of creepy characters. That begins with the early access release of The Broken Mask this Halloween. The fourth in the Pick Your Own Path horror anthology, The Dark Pictures: The Devil in Me, pits a group of documentary filmmakers against a torturous killer after he tricks them into booking into his hotel, themed after infamous serial killer H.H. Holmes' Murder Castle. The catch is that this isn't simply a replica. The entire building is a functional murder hotel, full of deadly traps and danger around every corner. It's now up to the hapless documentary crew to find a way back out of this hotel in one piece, and as always with these cinematic horror games, how these characters end up leaving the hotel comes down to the choices we make along the way. Developer Supermassive Games have been responsible for some highly compelling and fun games over the past years that play out as if we're taking part in our very own horror movie, so I'm definitely keeping an eye on The Devil in Me, which launches this November. Long-time viewers will perhaps recall my coverage of the original Hello Puppets, which released in late 2019 as a VR-focused comedy horror experience. It was a short yet often hilarious and inventive stealth and puzzle-focused tale of puppets brought to life and now out for blood, taking place in an abandoned TV studio where many of the show's original crew had been claimed by the very figures they used to puppeteer. The prequel story, Midnight Show, is due for release in 2022, and judging by developer Otherworld Interactive's recent marketing push, it seems the wait may soon be over. Hello Puppets Midnight Show drops VR support in favour of a more traditional hide-and-seek horror experience, as we step into the shoes of showrunner Owen Gubbison and discover how he accidentally brought his own puppet creations to life. While Hello Puppets Midnight Show doesn't have a firm release date quite yet, the developers have confirmed it's coming this fall. Mr. Hopps Playhouse 3 is the next entry in the popular retro-style indie horror series from UK-based developer Moonbit. It continues the story of Esther and her friends from the Blacklands Manor orphanage, as they are haunted by a demonic entity who hunts them with a collection of killer toys headed up by the titular Mr. Hop. Whereas the first two Mr. Hop games were based around the Super Nintendo era of 2D pixel art platform games, this third entry is based on the early 3D games of the PlayStation 1 era. Gameplay seems to be similar, with stealth and chase mechanics, environmental puzzles to solve, items to collect, and traps to avoid. Part of the fun of the Mr. Hopps games comes from discovering secrets and working out the deeper story hidden within. They make for fun theory material, and I'm personally looking forward to seeing where this tale of demonic toys goes next. We now move on from retro-themed cartoon horror to super realistic and visceral sci-fi body horror as we check out the Callisto Protocol. It comes from the original creators and talent behind 2008 sci-fi horror classic Dead Space, and the developer origins are evident. Callisto Protocol very much looks like a spiritual successor to the Dead Space series, and as a big fan of those games, I couldn't be more excited for it to release this December. Set 300 years into the future, we assume the role of Jacob Lee, a member of a prison colony located on Jupiter's moon Callisto. A mysterious outbreak causes the colony to begin transforming into bloodthirsty mutants, and after taking his chance to escape confinement, it is now down to Jacob to discover the source of the outbreak and contain it from spreading further. And probably escaping and scrubbing the planet would be a good idea too. With brutal gun and melee combat, incredible visuals and sound design, and a host of gloriously grotesque monsters to throw down against, the Callisto Protocol is shaping up to be one hell of a good time for horror fans. In Choo Choo Charles, we must traverse a hostile open world environment, scavenging supplies and carrying out tasks for the many peculiar denizens inhabiting it. There is, however, a catch: a giant arachnid train named Charles, who desires one thing and one thing only: to eat us, the player, alive. To make matters worse, Charles has attracted a cult of brainwashed shotgun-wielding minions who have set up patrols throughout the barren wilderness. Nonetheless, we must overcome these hardships if we are to complete work building up our own train with weapons and armour until it is strong enough to finally defeat Charles once and for all. Surely one of the strangest horror games on today's rundown, Choo Choo Charles is scheduled to release sometime in 2022, but no assurances have been given by solo developer 2-Star Games that they are still on track to meet this target. If the game does come out this side of Christmas, expect it as a late 2022 release. Either way, I'm personally very excited to check out this one. M36 Games ended up with a surprising smash hit when they released analog horror game Andy's Apple Farm Chapter 1 and its expansion, The Christmas Special, in 2021. Earlier this year, it was announced that Chapter 2 would be releasing sometime in 2022, and currently, while there have been few updates, this still appears to be the plan. Andy's Apple Farm tells the story of a game developer, Thomas Eastwood, who ended up murdering his best friend Arthur and possibly his wife after losing his son and spiraling into madness at the hands of a demonic entity. An entity which then trapped the souls of both Thomas and his family inside the very game he was creating, Andy's Apple Farm. Despite its initially cutesy visual style, Andy's Apple Farm is a genuinely scary game experience, which got under my skin with its use of sound and imagery like few others in recent memory have. A stopgap game titled Rabbit Night released over the summer, which added a little more clarity to certain story elements and helped set things up for the much awaited second chapter. A chapter which promises to introduce new characters and a funfair setting. You may remember we checked out a fairly lengthy demo for My Friendly Neighborhood earlier this year. Releasing from publisher Dread XP, this tale of a Sesame Street style puppet show gone terribly wrong as the animatronic puppets fall into madness is both hilarious and creepy in equal measure. Our protagonist is a handyman named Gordon, called in to fix an antenna which begins mysteriously broadcasting old episodes of puppet show My Friendly Neighborhood from a long abandoned TV station. However, upon arriving, Gord gets more than he bargains for, as killer human-sized puppets are on the rampage. Mixing non-linear survival horror gameplay, unique educational-themed weapons, challenging puzzles, and a colourful cast of characters, My Friendly Neighborhood stands out above a sea of similar horror games. Judging by the demo, it's going to be equal parts funny and scary, with a focus on classic survival horror game design and fun shooting mechanics that reminded me of retro FPS series Time Splitters. The game is planned for a 2022 release, but with no recent updates, it seems likely it may end up releasing next year. Still, we can keep our fingers crossed. And with that, we have checked out a full rundown of every upcoming horror game I plan to cover here at SuperHorrorBro for the remainder of 2022. There are also a ton of horror games planned for early 2023. The likes of Resident Evil 4, the Dead Space remake, and Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, not to mention unknowns like Bendy and the Dark Revival, Dark Deception Chapter 5, Five Nights at Freddy's Plus, Pop Goes Evergreen, and the FNAF Security Breach Ruins DLC. While things have been slow for horror over the last few months, it's clear to see the future is bright, and I'm very much looking forward to covering it all here with you on the channel. But for now, we come to the end of today's video. I hope you found it both entertaining and informative, and if you did, remember to leave a like, comment down below, and of course subscribe for more horror related content. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.